Welcome to Bleach Revisited. I am Karakura Gold, your host of this series in which we will be reading every single chapter of the Bleach manga, providing unscripted critical analysis and response to each of those chapters, as well as discussion of how they connect to the rest of the series. As usual, we start these videos with a reading of the chapter that we are currently on. This is chapter 59, lesson 1, One Strike, plus Gelled at Home. Oh, good morning, Assistant Captain Avery. Morning. Hey. Ah, flying away again? Wait, come back here. You'll get me in trouble. Look, a sexy lady butterfly. Hi, handsome. I'm Jennifer. Pisces, blood type A with E cups. What are you doing? Ah! What was that for, Reggie? You should be able to handle the hell butterflies on your own now, fool. But I thought you were off today. I'm just checking on the prisoner. How is she? The same. Oh, Miss Kochiki? The same. She's been like that since last night. Bleach, chapter 59, lesson 1. One strike plus gelled at home. Hey, how long are you gonna sulk, Rukia? You better eat something or you won't survive to be executed. I'm not sulking. I'm just not hungry, Mr. Assistant Captain. Huh? Does my new rank bother you? Not at all. You must have worked hard to get yourself promoted in the 2 months I was gone. Very impressive. I'm happy for you. Good luck, Mr. Assistant Captain. You're strong, Mr. Assistant Captain. What's with the funky eyebrows, Mr. Assistant Captain? Oh, you're dead! Step out here! Renji. What? Am I really going to die? Of course you are! You're going to be executed any day! I see. Why wouldn't I be? Come on, I'm only kidding! How do I know? Katakuchiki is on his way to headquarters. He'll probably request a reduced sentence for you. He's your older brother. He won't stand by and let you be killed. You're right. He'll kill me himself. I know very well the kind of person he is. In the 40 years since the Kuchiki family took me in, not once has he even looked at me. Whoa, what is this? Incredible! This huge cavernous chamber is right under my store? Ah, shut up. Yeah, I'm duly impressed. Haha, believe it or not, this is your training room. We use this Uber technology to make this overnight, just for you. For real? Is it your policy to ignore customers just to advance the story? Look, the ceiling is painted like the sky to lighten the mood. Great, just like a prison. We even planted trees to make it cheery. They're all dead. It was no mean feat to build this under a city. We did well. It's probably illegal and in direct violation of multiple building ordinances. Anyway, we don't have much time. Let's get started. Let's start training already. Good, that's the spirit. Very well. Let's do this. Whoa. What was that for? Well, this is the first time you've left your body without becoming a Soul Reaper. It's hard to breathe, right? You'll find it hard to move, too. You're just a Kanpaku now. Baikikuchiki destroyed the source of your spiritual energy, your Hakusui, and its booster, the Sakatsu. Now you're just a regular disembodied spirit from a regular human with no spiritual powers. Now, if you want to fight the Soul Reapers, your spirit energy must be restored. It's the only way. First, you need to learn to control your Kanpaku body. Spirit energy will give you that control. The more of it you have, the better your Kanpaku body will respond. And when it can move better than your material body, you'll have recovered your spirit energy. That sounds complicated. So what am I supposed to do? Pilates? Please. Maybe you learn better by doing. Alright, it's time! Hi, it's a pleasure to train with you. Huh? Here's your first lesson. Hit her. What? The rules are simple. The session ends when one of you can no longer move. Knock out before you get knocked out. Are you sick? You want me to hit a little girl? Well, it's not as easy as you think. Not with that body. What? Hey, hold on, I'm not... Please, put them on. Or you'll get killed. Huh? See, what did I tell you? Dad, Ichigo's gone! Under the bed. It's morning already? Why isn't Ichigo home yet? That is it for chapter 59 of Bleach. We got to see quite a bit. So, let's talk about it. Let's get into the discussion of both the artwork as well as the narratives. Couple of different things going on here. What's interesting is that we open up in Soul Society, which is the first time that I believe that we've actually seen Soul Society in the manga. So that's pretty cool. Interestingly enough, we do have telephone wires, so there is power, there's electricity, I suppose. Surprising that we actually get that, but it's cool that we open up on this first panel that could be, arguably anywhere. It doesn't seem like it's that far off, but whenever we get the next one and we get firmly set into this sort of Japanese village with, of course, Shinigami recognizably walking around, it immediately sets the scene. So it's interesting that it kind of swaps between, maybe something that feels a little familiar to revealing that it is in fact someplace new. Of course, here's Renji being taller than other characters. I think this is yet another iteration of whenever the early translation didn't quite know how they would end up translating something down the line. So here they translate lieutenant as assistant captain. Basically, anywhere in the fandom, as well as later in the translation, that's going to be translated as lieutenant. So he's been promoted basically to lieutenant. So second in his division to Captain Kuchiki, right? So this is door number 6. The 6 being there, notably, I will say, is because they're in the 6th division. If you remember, there are 13 divisions in the Gotei 13, or that's the name of the organization. But basically, Soul Society has 13 divisions, is the idea. And they all handle, I assume, different areas of the world that they have jurisdiction in. So here, they're at the Division 6 quarters, which is why, Renji, he's got this key for it. He's going to check this lock. There's a soul butterfly here. Interestingly enough, we meet this other guy who we don't have named yet, but he's got tattoos just like Renji does. So clearly, maybe there's some connection between the two of them. But he's trying to kind of get a hold of the hell butterfly. So it's interesting that the hell butterflies are actually just like a real living kind of thing. It's not just a spectral phenomenon. but that they are these entities that do exist. Or at the very least, they exist for the sake of this gag. Anyway, we don't really have anybody moving between the realms here, so you gotta assume that the soul butterfly is just there, just to be there. I like Renji's kind of floral pattern. He's clearly still recuperating from his wounds. But, of course, he's coming to check on Rukia. So it's interesting that Rukia is being held here in the 6th Division quarters. At least that seems to be the case. We got this guy that's, pretty close to Renji, and he looks like he's been taking, looking over her. But she's been kind of quiet and withdrawn. I like that this cover we get Mizuru and Keigo. Not often that we see them on a cover, but it is cool to see them nevertheless. Keigo probably looking as cool as Keigo will ever look. It's a pretty cool Keigo look, to be honest. Mizuru, I could take her or leave it. Anyway, kind of interesting here. We get this interaction between Renji and Rukia as we get to understand them a little bit better, right? That he's still looking out for Rukia even though she's going to be executed, and he's trying to kind of break it easy to her, like, hey, maybe this isn't going to be so bad. Maybe you can, maybe you won't be executed, right? There's all this talk of sentence introduction, and Renji was already talking about her getting time added to her sentence. So it's still a bit nebulous exactly what the punishment is meant to be, other than execution, which then sentences don't really make sense unless it's a life sentence, and then you get executed at the end of it. Like, it's hard to parse, and I do wish it was a little bit easier to parse. But of course, I like that Rukia takes this time to tease Renji over being a lieutenant. Of course, she is sulking, right? She's really reflecting on everything that's brought her to this point, and maybe, the connections that she actually made with people back on Earth, right? We also have to consider, everything that was said at the very end of that previous battle with Ichigo, right? There's pretty emotional moments, both in them parting and then also in, her kind of really being worried that obviously Ichigo's going to come after her, but then Baikugo brought up something about Ichigo looking like somebody else. So, clearly she's got a few feelings tied up in all of this, and things not really working out seems to be frustrating her, especially because she doesn't know that Ichigo's still alive right now, right? Her assumption is that he's probably dead, unless, at some point Urahara was able to let her know. Anyway, of course, she teases Renji for being a lieutenant, right? That he must have worked real hard. It must be real impressive. And sure enough, gets under his skin. Because he probably did work hard, I keep saying, Anyway, we cut to a bit of a more serious moment after the comedic, as we are to do with Bleach. Page turned into the serious from a comedic moment. You can almost bank on it, I am in the zone. Now that I'm aware of it, it's bugging me. I'm sorry. I've pointed it out for you too. Anyway, she reflects on this, how am I going to die a bit? And Renji has this gut reaction of, yeah, you'll be executed any day. And Rukia kind of has this moment of, why wouldn't I be, right? That she's still got this kind of maybe vain hope or unrealistic hope that maybe things will be different. But of course, Renji's trying to, again, really express that maybe this isn't as bad as she thinks it'll be. Obviously, things got to be pretty dire, because otherwise she doesn't need to be rescued, right? What's the point of Ichigo's training and eventual heading to Soul Society if not? So it's still kind of in this place where we're starting to learn a little bit more about her situation in the Soul Society. What I do like here is obviously we get to see a side of Renji that we haven't because they're not in the middle of a fight. I like to see these characters bouncing off of each other, especially Rukia teasing him. I think that's really cute, considering especially the position that she's in. So it's a little bit of levity for a moment that could otherwise be very kind of serious or low, but I think it speaks towards the kind of, I guess, camaraderie to an extent that they have, right? That Ruki is able to kind of be teasing and let her guard down and maybe live in the moment for a little bit, then instead of just reflecting on everything. By the same right, it's like, why is Renji here, right? Clearly, he's here to check in on her. He's here to talk to her. He's here to convey that, maybe he'll reduce a sentence. Who knows? Of course, we get this back and forth that I think is pretty telling. Renji very seriously, expresses that he won't just let you get killed, and Rukia comes back saying that he'll do the killing himself. This surprises Renji, which is interesting because Renji should have been her, or not her, with Byakuya, right? He's been very close to him. We get the sense that they've been working in tandem for a while, and so Renji is kind of surprised to learn of that, and that's important. It's pretty significant as Rukia makes it clear that Byakuya seems to have no love for her, right? That he's never even looked at her, that he doesn't have compassion for her whatsoever. And even as her own brother, which is pretty rough. Of course, since the Kuchiki family took me in, so just like Renji, who was taken in by the Kuchiki family, obviously he's not named Kuchiki. I guess he's not married into it in some way. Something like that. He doesn't have a family tie, but he was still taken in by the Kuchiki and fostered by them. It seems the same is true for Rukia here. But unlike Renji, who seems to have, at least a working sort of relationship with Byakuya, you can really tell that, Renji is looked down upon by Byakuya in a lot of ways, just from their short interactions that we had in the fight, right? Byakuya does have some moments where he's pretty short with Renji, but otherwise, he doesn't seem like he hates him or anything like that. Just that he kind of considers him to be a lot weaker and maybe to not be taking things as seriously as he could. But Byakuya seems to be a very self-serious sort of fellow. And yeah, if Renji's relationship with Byakuya isn't that great, despite being taken in by them and having worked alongside him, Rukia's being a criminal and all of that certainly doesn't help, even though it seems like even in all these years since she's been taken in, he's not once looked at her. It's interesting. So we get this idea of 40 years since they took her in. So you've got to wonder, she said she's 150, right? So it's curious, is, at least from 110, she was taken in by this family. Was she trained to be a soul reaper before then? What was the case, Trying to kind of grapple with the ages of people in Soul Society, but just a bit of information to talk back. Here we get that shot of Byakuya. He's got his robes on. We couldn't really see this before, but it's very clear here now that he has this big white robe, not just the scarf, and the 6 for his division is on the back of it. So it's clearly demarking his division and the fact that he's a captain. Kind of interesting design-wise is that this robe has the same sort of, not the same patterning that Kisuke's has at the bottom, but very similar patterning. And I don't know if that's just an aesthetic thing or what, but I do think it's meant to evoke the same sense of this character that is much stronger than we might have initially expected. Although I think Byakuya makes it pretty clear how powerful he is. Nevertheless, it's this visual link between Katsuki and Urahara Kisuke that I think is intentional. I think the cloaks are meant to kind of mirror each other to an extent, but more on that in another point. Anyway, back at the Urahara shop, it is closed. They have gone underground, and there's this huge underground facility that Urahara has set up to train Ichigo. I like that Ichigo, is playing it cool, but they kind of make all these gags about the training room and then he just built it for Ichigo. I can't imagine that it was made within this short amount of time. Maybe, but it seems incredibly improbable. So, the big thing here, going forward, I like that big stretch from Ichigo. Pretty good stuff. Also, great kind of movement here to. I love all the shots where Ichigo gets his soul knocked out of his body. I think all those are fantastic. And here's yet another great one. I love that we also get that, before page turn as we get him skidding across the ground, which is also pretty good. But here we could see that he is connected, in fact, by that soul chain. So this is what normally happens whenever your soul is knocked out of your body. And in the case of Orihime, we already saw that happen before. Of course, we get this mention, the reminder of exactly how he was hurt, and the fact that he has to first restore his spiritual energy, so his Reiatsu, right? That's how it's translated later on, or I guess not translated, but kept as just like a term within universe. But his spiritual energy, or his Reiatsu, needs to be restored, and in order to do that, he has to learn to control his spiritual body, his Kanpaku. So all that kind of gets explained to us, that he has to learn to move and so on and so forth, and get really natural in the body. And so he calls over Urahara, of course, calls over Ururu, which you'd think if you're going to spar with somebody, it might be Tessai or even Jinta if you're going to use the kid, but Ururu is the last person that you'd expect, which is great because, of course, it highlights that, as with everything with Kisuke, you can't just take it at face value, right? Yeah. Immediately expresses that she'll kill him. I love that we get this shot of where she stepped as she's flinging forward. Just the surprise on Ichigo and that split moment before she's able to deck him. Anyway, another great kind of shot of Urahara here, and that ends up closing things out. I do like, of course, Urahara pulling out the fan anytime that he knows that he's really up to some shenanigans. I wonder if you could tie that to any times in which he knows that he's presenting something that is maybe a bit duplicitous. Not quite sure, but it's another way of him kind of hiding himself or fanning himself off or just looking cool, really. Anyway, that's it for this one as far as the chapter goes. Not a lot to say about it. Obviously, we're getting into the training. I like that Ururu is involved in Ichigo's training, and it makes it to where you can imagine that the other characters in Urahara Shot will be involved too. This isn't the first time that we've seen Ururu being hyper confident, despite I say competent, not confident, but competent, despite her kind of meager form. But again, I think the idea is that you can't just judge something by the way it looks, or a person by the way that they look, right? And that's one of the things that Bleach is trying to kind of teach us through its visual language as well as a little bit of the narrative too. So, I say not a lot going on, just affirmations of a lot of the things that we already kind of knew, right? Rukia is here at Soul Society. New information, Byakuya does not care much for her. So things are not looking great in her, corner of the woods or whatever. And then on Ichigo's side, it's like, okay, well, Ichigo's training. He's got to learn how to move around in his Kanpaku, in his spiritual body, and regain control over his spiritual energy or his Reiatsu. And the new information is, of course, that this training will be administered by Ururu, and if Ichigo does not take it seriously, one step up could get him killed. Yeah, I mean, not anything mind-shattering. It is cool that we do get to see our first shots of Soul Society, but that's about it for that. As far as my take on the chapter, I think it's a solid kind of lead-in. It doesn't build as much excitement and momentum as the previous ones did for me, but that's okay. I think it's mostly just kind of to set the basis for where we're going to be going forward in both Urahara's training as well as anything in Soul Society with Rukia. It also clears up a couple things that we might have been questioning between Rukia and her brother, right? By Kua. So, all of that I think is significant and needs to be shown to us in one way or another. And it's nice that we actually do get these these moments with Rukia. I think it's something that I appreciate rather than her just being, off screen until Ichigo gets to her again, right? So we're getting a little bit of a change in our perspective. Whereas before, it was mostly limited to Ichigo or whoever was in the middle of fighting a hollow. But now we have these scenes from that scene specifically was falling from Renji's perspective even. So we're starting to get different POV characters, which is kind of exciting. Different perspectives and ones that aren't just tied to a battle, because we haven't really gotten a lot of Rukia in non-combat scenes before. We've gotten a little bit of her near the end of everything recently, right? Where she's leaving and trying to figure out exactly how to navigate things, or spending time with the other girls at Karakura High. So it's neat that we get to see some other kind of point of view with her, and that we get this really kind of this narrative that's willing to follow different characters. The problem with that is, of course, as you continue to introduce more and more characters, it can be easy for some of them to feel like they're neglected. And that certainly will get to be a problem for some of our characters, unfortunately. Obviously, there's ones, to this, even at this point. For instance, I am a fan of Mizuru, but obviously he is not developing any sort of powers, or is not at the heart of any of these larger conflicts. So I think that's fine. Some characters have lesser roles to fill, but it just means that you'll see less of them. Now, I think the thing where people are reasonably upset is whenever a character like, for instance, Orihime or Chad or Ishida doesn't get to show up as much as you would like, despite them being portrayed as being pretty significant, right? Like, to this moment, we still haven't seen Ishida since the battle. We've seen Chad and Orihime at the very least, but Ishida wasn't at school. At least it got mentioned, but, it leaves us wondering, right? And if we don't get payoff for that, then it would be even more frustrating. Or if whenever he finally does show up, he doesn't do anything really exciting, and it's like, okay, all the tension of where he was, and it didn't really matter. So there can be moments like that can be frustrating, especially whenever you start to split between a lot of a cast, and so it's like, okay, well, I have to spend time with all these other characters. I just want to focus on the ones that I really care about that I've been with so far. But it's the affordances that it allows opens up a lot too. So you have to consider everything in narrative comes with an affordance, what it kind of offers you, and then also some restraints and some kind of downsides, right? So you have to think about that. Anytime that there are these narrative things, think about how is this operating, right? Why are we getting this? What is it really doing to help out the story? And if you can start to pin those things down, maybe you can start to appreciate different parts of a narrative, even if it's not something that you might like on a first pass. I don't think this is egregious at all. I like that we get to see Soul Society. I like that we get to see Rukia here. Obviously, it's normal to be concerned for Rukia and be interested in what's going on. I like that we get to see a little bit more from Renji, and we get to see him as a bit more of a sympathetic character too. That's a bit new. We got to see a little bit of that. There were shreds of it in the previous fight, right? Whenever he was trying to stop Rukia from worsening her sentence and things like that. But here it really starts to shine through a bit more. So these characters are being developed before our eyes in pretty natural ways as they have actual conversations with each other that make sense. Anyway, that's it for this one. Let me talk about some spoilers. Let me talk about how this connects to the rest of the manga. So, if you're not interested in being spoiled, this is the time to, I guess, mute the video and let it play. Or navigate somewhere else. Leave a comment. Let me know what you wanted to see in this, what you were looking forward to, what your thoughts are on the chapter, all of that. If you agree or disagree with any of the points that I made. I didn't have a lot to say about this one, so, I'm interested to see if you have things to say that I didn't. Anyway, spoiler time. So, kind of neat that we get to see Soul Society here for the first time. Assumably, this is obviously this is near the Squad 6 barracks, right? So this has to be within the Seirete. We don't get to see a lot of the architecture there, and so here it's this strange kind of Western Eastern mix, sort of. Like we get these pillars, which I don't know. I always associate those front kind of columns as being like almost like French pillars or whatever. This reminds me a lot of the French and Spanish architecture from around wherever I grew up, more so than Japanese kind of theming. Obviously, the little like I guess guard railings and some of the windows over here, as well as these kind of pagoda like shapes and the paper lanterns that sells it as more sort of Japanese themed. And then the second that we get everybody in robes. Interesting here that we don't get Renji in his Shu Hakusho. Instead, he is in these kind of floral bathrobes. But I mean, Sword Reapers can change clothes. It's fine. Yeah, he's got this key. Now, with the Hell Butterfly, I still don't know what to make of it. I really hope that Hell Art gives us a little bit more answers about the purpose of the Hell Butterflies. Because it's just like, oh, they're related to Hell, right? So, I don't know. If you have insights there, please let me know. I don't remember this dude's name. It's not coming to me. But, the guy that looks up to Renji. Doesn't do a lot. Thinking about Rukia, thinking about her being alone in the tower or the cell, reminds me a little bit of Orihime in the situation that she's in, right? Especially with Okiura constantly checking up on her. Obviously, they don't have a pre-existing condition, a pre-existing relationship, but it's nevertheless interesting that we would revisit some of these beats later on. Maybe Rukia is that small because she's malnourished. Anyway, here Renji is being derided for becoming vice captain within the last 2 months. So it must have been only recently that he became the VC, which is kind of cute. I like that Rukia is giving him a hard time. Obviously, they went through academy together. So, he's been promoted. And clearly, he can perform Shikai. And, eventually we find that I guess he trains and then he learns how to do Bankai. But he's a vice captain. He can perform Shikai. He's been working alongside Byakuya for a while, so it only makes sense. Of course, Rukia has not been promoted, so it's interesting to think about like that. Like they kind of had the same job. Anyway, the day of Haruki's execution being loose and only whenever the plot needs it is something that we'll see a whole bunch. I like to hear that Renji underestimates Byakuya, that he has the wrong kind of idea of him, and Rukia sort of gives this insight about him. But it's neat to think about because Rukia is wrong too, where like Byakuya really does care about Rukia because it's the only connection he has to his wife Isana, right? But who's passed away. But like Renji, I don't know that Renji knows any of that, right? Because he's just leaning on like the, oh well, he's your old brother, he won't let you be killed. And Rukia has that sort of reflection. The intensity that Byakuya brings, and especially members of Soul Society, it's easy to think about characters like Gin or Tosin, and their disillusionment with some Soul Reapers, and especially, I mean, Gin's going after Aizen because clearly Aizen's a horrible dude, but Tosin sees all this injustice, and it makes a lot of sense because these are the kinds of people that are in leadership roles, right? Um, yeah, not once looked at you again because she resembles Isana, right? Otherwise, I don't have much to say. As far as the underground training realm, I don't remember that much about it. It reminds me a lot of course, Hueco Mundo, or Los Noches, really, which is wild. But I think the more significant thing is just like the idea that Urahara's kind of playing really coy, that he made it overnight for him. Whenever I think about he made it overnight for him, I wonder if he got Hachi to just like shape the whole place, right? Otherwise, maybe they just use some excavation sort of keto that we're just not aware of. Um. Anyway, I don't know that there's a lot else connection wise. You know, this sort of training, kind of getting down to fundamentals, is pretty neat, and kind of plot beat like this step by step sort of, we need to learn these important like core facets of even existing, that you haven't really learned. It's neat that we get that from Urahara, but like his is so bizarre. Like it's like, okay, well, you need to, like, he's like throwing Ichigo through the fundamentals to like mislead him, to make him think that he's getting his Soul Reaper powers, but really Urahara is like doing all these extra things to ensure that Ichigo is competent and able to quickly kind of strengthen himself, right? So all the stuff that he's throwing Ichigo through is kind of like a gauntlet that the average person wouldn't be put in, but also is cultivating powers beyond just Soul Reaper powers, right? Especially all the stuff with the Shattered Shaft. And I think Kisuke is aware of that, especially having knowledge of holification, how it allows Soul Reapers to go beyond the limits of a Soul Reaper, right? So I definitely think Kisuke, and then of course Kisuke knows that Ichigo is a Quincy as well, because he's aware of, he literally helped Masaki and Ishin out. So it's neat to think about Kisuke's motivation through all this. But whenever I was talking about this first, I wanted to kind of mention structurally, this was really reflective of the sort of stuff that we get later on in Thousand Year Blood War, where Ichigo has to kind of learn all these powers step by step. To a lesser extent, the Fullbringer arc, whenever he has to learn his Fullbring, but really I'm thinking about Thousand Year Blood War, where he has to learn all these kind of fundamentals for the first time. And Thousand Year Blood War, of course, flip things on their head, because it's like, well, yeah, this is how it actually works, with your Zanpakuto and all of that. So that's kind of neat. That like that gets revisited structurally to an extent, and that the bizarre sort of things that Kisuke is putting Ichigo through are not entirely akin to how it's actually handled. So cool stuff, nevertheless. I am a fan. Trying to think of other moments that this kind of connects to, but I'm drawing up blanks. It's not coming to me. It's all just Tsukushima in my memories. Anyway, obviously yet more foreshadowing about Ururu being a death machine. I really read Ururu. I mean, like, I think the idea is that she's a modified soul, similar to the way that or like an artificial soul, not a modified soul, but I mean, same thing. She's an artificial soul, similar to the way that Nemu is, right? And I think even whenever she's in a physical body, she's just in like a fighting oriented guy. But yeah, it strikes me as especially the idea of Kisuke kind of creating, I've got this super powerful little girl who has black hair and helps me out. It's like, yeah, that's Nemu, right? It's just Nemu. So you have to wonder, did he do it first or did Mayuri rip off of him? Because Mayuri's gone through quite a few Nemus, probably because he's so destructive with them. Who knows? Anyway, interesting to think about. Clearly, Urahara takes way better care of his like surrogate children than Mayuri does, but that's no surprise. Anyway, that's all I had to say about this one, really. I don't think I have any other big connections. Obviously, Ichigo can get punched. That's about it. That's it for this one, folks. That's all. That's all I got. Running on empty here. But no, I don't really have any other big connections to draw. If you do, please let me know. If you see anything here in this chapter that I didn't pick up on that connects the rest of Bleach, either in thematic sort of things, or in structures, or even in just like moments in the art or with the characters that you think are significant towards something in the future, do let me know. I think this idea of like getting Ichigo used to his spiritual, body being capable as he comes close to death, right? As he's trying to evade these close blows, definitely reminds me of the sort of things that Ishin was putting Ichigo through, right? So that sort of makes sense to me. Is that Ishin's big drop kicks were always kind of training in a way. Wow. What do you think? Let me know. Anyway, this has been Karker Gold. I am reminding you to always remember spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.